Up and at 'em, guys. That's right. It's Monday, the 29th of June. We're getting close to the end of the month, right? So, what do we want to talk about this morning? I thought we'd talk about what longevity, what life in the repair shop teaches you. So, hang tight. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric. If you didn't already know it, yes, this is a weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Monday, the 29th of June of 2026. So, what do many years in the repair shop teach you? All depends. Depends on how you're doing it. If you're doing the impulsive way of fixing first and then diagnosing second, I don't care how much faster you are at it, you're still doing it backwards. And I should know. I mean, because that's the way our shop ran. And that was the impulse to just start fixing. You got light bulbs going on in your head saying, I've seen this before, so this is how I take care of it. And then come to find out that doesn't work. It could be, it sounds like a coil breaking down. So you're not going to replace just one on a twin, you're going to replace them both. One's going bad, the other one's right behind it. So you order a new set of coils, wait for it to come in, put them on, hit the switch, and it's still doing the same thing. What did we do wrong? We allowed ourselves to be impulsive and start fixing instead of diagnosing the issue. Had we done a diagnostic, we would have found out that there's probably a wire somewhere shorting to the frame that's causing issues with the coil. Because if we would have pulled the wires off from the coil and let it run for that length of time, we would have saw that it doesn't have a problem with the coils. It's somewhere else. And that you would learn in the diagnostic part, right? Because that's your number two, which is fire. And during my diagnostic mode, when I'm in number two, which is fire, is if I'm having any kind of issues with those coils, I'm going to pull the ground wires off and see if that makes a change. If it makes a change, then I know I need to start looking at what? Safety switch, key switch could be going bad. Uh, any of the PTO switch, if that's left on or if that's getting wore inside, it could be intermittent and causing my coils to falter. Brake, seat. We had a couple customers over the past couple of years that would call us and say that their mower wasn't running right. And what it was is adjusting the seat so that they were heavy enough to sit on the seat switch. Every time they hit a bump, they would come up off there and the mower would go to die and then they drop back down and start back up again. Cloud 9, we would go hop on the seat without any issue. So when we have that issue with a customer, we go to the customer's house and have them sit on the seat and show me, what do you mean when you're having problems? And sometimes just a simple moving the seat ahead so that it's more comfortable and it's also getting enough weight to hold the seat switch down. You don't need diagnostic for that. All you got to do is just watch. And that comes with time of seeing it before. So if I have a customer tell me that they're mowing the yard and it runs good and starts having an issue, runs good, then starts having an issue, that's the first thing I'm going to look for. Is the seat adjusted correctly for the individual? And is that individual sitting far enough back, or are they sitting on the lip where it's not depressing the seat switch? Because it matters. if I guess I'm going to just say it straight out, because what I've learned is we wasted a lot of time and a lot of money on customers' backs of parts that we didn't need because we wanted to fix first and then diagnose afterwards. More than once, Claudia has jumped to it's got to be the carburetor, it's got to be this, got to be that. Spent 2 hours on a mower and still not getting what he thinks he should have. And of course, me is, did you do a compression test on it? And the answer would be no, not yet. Well, you spent 2 hours on it, put a compression tester on it, and voila, you've only got 66 pounds of compression. No matter what you do, it's not going to change it. So just try adjusting the valves. If that doesn't work, we're done, because we no longer repair engines for a living. That used to be half the revenue was rebuilding engines. Now, not so much, because it's cheaper to drop a new one in with a warranty than it is to have us work on the old one. If you are a do-it-yourselfer, then it would be feasible. And it'd be a great learning lesson of having that accomplishment that you got it all back together and it's running great. There's no greater feeling than that, right? But that's one of the great things about this channel is that, I'm learning so much from you guys, that you guys are willing to share your experiences with me on ways to do things better. We're not looking at faster, we're looking at better. And if you do things better, it ends up being faster. Okay? A typical diagnostic on an engine will take me 5 to 10 minutes most. When I say 10, I'm saying, okay, the valves are out of whack. It's going to take me a minute or so to get the valve covers off and then to get the feeler gauge and start adjusting after I get top dead center. That would be 10 minutes. To find out, do I go past go or do I go straight to jail? Straight to jail is when I start running to fix something versus diagnose it. And, for you young guys, because compression, there's a lot of different numbers out there. And with your older ones, 100 psi. With your newer ones, 70 or better with the automatic compression relief system. But the old flatheads, yes, the old flatheads like Kohlers and them, they would run on 50 all day long. And then if you go to Harbor Freight and you get a Predator engine, or your shop gets a Predator engine in and you do a compression test, you look at the compression test and it's saying like 58, 56, and you're like, well, oh, this is junk. But it's not. And we've spent an hour one day on this one Predator that was hooked up to what they call them, a trash sump, where you can pump crap through it. But Claude would adjust the valves as I was pulling and checking the compression on it. And the best we could get it was like 58. So Claude's like, let's see if it'll run. So he threw the cover back on quick. Second pull, that thing was running. I am not kidding you. And it's just like, there's no way this should be able to run at 58. We're seeing a lot of Predators come through now. I have found that anything over 52 to 58 is the norm for the beast. So if you're looking for 70 or 100 and you can't get to 70 and you're shaking your head going, this is a lost cause, then think again if it's a Predator or the Chinese engines. I don't know how they're built, but they run on low compression and they run great. If you try to get them up to 100, good luck on that. It ain't going to happen. But that comes with time. We didn't know that until we started hitting Predator engines. On generators, on water pumps, on tillers, and we had to learn because I'll tell you, the first couple that came in, we chalked up to it's an issue with compression, so it's not fixable. So we called the customer and said it's not worth it. That you don't have enough compression to run, so the engine is pretty much trash. And they're like, well, it ran good when I put it away. It was a fuel issue. But since we didn't get past the compression where we thought we should be, we automatically red tagged them as no fix. And it was a fluke on the third or fourth one that we encountered that we said, let's just see if we can adjust and let's see if it'll start. And we went past compression. We did the compression, got it up to like 56, 57. We had fire, dumped the fuel, dumped the carburetor, checked the electric solenoid on the bottom, put it all back together, put fresh fuel in it, checked the air breather. Second pull, it's running and running super. What did we do? We called those other two customers to come back with a piece of equipment. And if you want to talk about having egg on your face, that would be it. But I'm the type of person that if I screw up, I'll tell you, I'll screw it up, So they brought the units back and we instead of stopping at compression, we went ahead and did the whole 4 points and drained it all fuel, everything like that. And voila, those two are running. So you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You want to, it depends upon the beast, the animal. And the animal, which is the Predators, the Chinese engines that are prevalent now, even on like the Bajas and all them, they're the same beast. Now you get into the name brands like Steel, Husqvarna, and all them. They have the automatic compression relief systems built into them, especially the ones that you have to pull over by hand. And then you have the easy starts, which I can't stand them things. It drives me nuts. Claude's got one. He thought it would be easier to use, and you're so used to yanking on it, and you can't do that with an easy start. It ain't going to happen. But you have to understand that on those, we got the automatic compression relief system on it. And for years, for the bigger saws, we had the decompression buttons on them, still do, that you push that down so that you can start it easier. But once it starts, it pops that button back out and now it goes full compression. Because, it just, trying to start it and fight it on the bigger ones was one of the biggest dilemmas they had until they did start using the compression relief systems. So, what are your thoughts on it? Do you tend to do a diagnostic or do you have that impulse like I used to of just diving in and thinking it's going to be a quick fix and it ends up you spent a lot of time for naught? And when I find myself doing that, I don't charge the customer for that. You're going to say, well, how does the customer know? It doesn't matter what the customer knows. It's what I know and what I feel is fair to my customers. So in the comments, what do you guys think? Do you do a diagnostic now or do you still find yourself impulsive? On that note, you guys have a great Monday and we'll catch you here bright and early tomorrow morning for another episode of The Weekday. Enjoy.